Hey everybody, this is Rob and Jordan, and we are back with Archangel Ink Live number 18. Jordan, how are you today?
Rob, I'm great. How are you doing? It's great to be here.
Good, yeah, I am. I'm hanging in there, a little under the weather, but the show must go on. So we are
Yes.
here, Archangel Ink Live number 18, and I'm looking forward to it. And today we're going to be talking about when to write your next book. So I know this came up with a client of ours who had kind of reached out and asked, hey, I've got some ideas. I've got my current book released, and it's going well. So how do I stage and time the next phase of things? What should I be considering what should I be considering as I'm kind of weighing those options? And I know you had some thoughts, and I will open the floor to you and kind of start off with.
Good deal. Rob, so I have 5 different thoughts that I hope we can get through pretty quickly on this, but okay. I think it's a great question. I love considering this because I've written 7 books now, and I think it's something I should have asked myself early on. It's something I ask now, and I really do think about this, but when I was early on, I was just like churning them out. And I think if you want to do that, all the more power to you. If that's something you want to take on, you want to just write as many books as you want, like that's good, but there are some things to consider too. So right off the bat, the first thing I want to talk about is the first question or first thing to think about, as I would suggest, is to really take stock. So yeah, you're considering writing maybe a second book, maybe a third or fourth. Well, take stock, and you probably already know this, but it can be helpful to even write this down too. How did your first book do? How did the second and third books do? Did it accomplish your overall goal? So whatever your goal was for that first book, is it helping, or did it accomplish that? Is the book helping to build the foundation that you already have built? Did the book help to start build your foundation? We talked in another video of reasons to write a book, or reason, or how to use a book as a business card, and all of that stuff. We've talked about this kind of thing, but really, did that first book help you? And if it didn't help that, it may not have been the book, it may have been the subject matter, it may have been a specific way you were taking it that maybe it wasn't able to help your audience. But just thinking about if it did or if it didn't, and if it did, that's something to consider. Maybe you can do a second book. That is a reason to write a second book. If it really helped launch your platform, hey, yeah, do that again. Repeat what's working. Mm-hmm. But maybe if it didn't, maybe it was like I was saying, maybe it was the book itself, maybe it was a subject matter, just because, there are a lot of authors out there that do write just one book, and then, they would say they struck out, like that first book didn't really work. It could be something as simple as, the book you wrote and the subject matter you were writing about just wasn't, it didn't fit the market. It wasn't, for whatever reason, it didn't work. But just because a book, your first book doesn't work, that's not a reason not to consider writing a second one. And that's kind of going away from the first point there, but I just want to mention that.
Sure.
Do you have any other thoughts with that one, Rob?
Yeah, the thing that I would that came to mind as you were discussing this is, as you're taking stock, one of the things that you could be looking at is what's the feedback that you got? What sort of things resonated with your audience? Was there a consistent message in your reviews or in the commentary that people shared with you of, hey, I really liked when you talked about X part, like chapter 5 when you were discussing such and such subject. I really would have loved for you to jump into that more, and that could be the basis of it. If somebody has already read your book, somebody has already decided that you are valuable to them, valuable enough that they want to comment on it and share, then maybe you're starting to find your target audience. And if you're paying attention to them and listening to that feedback and, kind of giving them more of what they're looking for, what your audience is expressing a desire for, that can help inform the research phase and, when you want to put out that next one.
Yeah, and I think finding your audience and finding the right fit as far as your writing niche, I don't think that's something that happens overnight. I think it's a very complicated and potentially drawn out process that takes a lot of time. It's taken me a lot of time to figure that out. I think that's pretty common. I don't think if you're just getting into this for the first time, maybe you didn't already have an audience, and let's say you just wrote one book. I don't think, it does take time. I don't think you should think of it as a failure if that book didn't sell 1 million copies. Right. And it's definitely not a reason not to continue by writing a next book. Now we're going to talk a little bit later about, maybe writing the next book isn't the next best idea. It could be an idea for later on. So we're going to get into that a little bit, but it's just something to consider.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point too. As you were discussing that, one of my thoughts was anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. So you may not have the million sales that you're hoping for right out of the gate, but again, if you're connected to your why, if you have a reason, if you have a bigger goal and a bigger mission with your writing career, your writing aspirations, then sometimes it's good to just remember it's not always going to go swimmingly right out of the gate. The other thing that I think of is a story I heard, and I may have discussed this in a previous video, but with I think it was Ira Glass from This American Life, and he talks about artists and creative types, they have good taste, and part of why they want to create art, or whether it's writing or music or filmmaking or visual art or whatever it is because they have a sense of what is good and true and beautiful, and they're trying to reach toward that. And there's going to be a gap there. When you first start, you're not going to be able to tap into that. You're not going to be directly connected to that muse, to that, to that energy, to whatever it is that you're trying to reach. But you're going to keep working on it through iterations. And, it may take a really long time, and there's nothing really that you can do to accelerate the process except just go through more reps. And as you do that, you start to hone and refine your process. And eventually that gap narrows between what is really good and what you're capable of. And eventually you get to a point where you're capable of creating something that is the sort of quality and the truthful beauty of art and creativity that you're capable of. And so that's just going to take time. And so again, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. Just have your mission in mind, have your goal in mind, and keep at it, because it's the very rare artist or creator who is going to knock it out of the park right out of the gate. And even when that does happen, sometimes they may miss out on some of that creative grist and the learning and insight that happens as you develop over time and as you go through hardship and struggle and kind of fight your way through and feel your way out through struggle.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. That was number one. Take stock. Number two, I want to jump to another question to think about and ask yourself is what is your writing pace? Or going along with that, are you an author? Are you someone that wants to continue to write books? I think that's a great question. We talked about using the book as a business card, and it is a powerful tool to use. But, do you need a second or third book to continue to use that as a business card? Maybe not. Maybe the timing's not right there. If you are a fast writer and it's something, you can really just knock out, that's something to consider too. If writing a book for you is something that's pretty simple and pretty quick, that you can go and take, a couple weeks off of work and spend time writing. And obviously that's not realistic for everybody, but there are people that may be able to do that. Maybe you're in a situation where you do have a little bit more time and something that you can put away that time to write. That's an important consideration as well. How much time do you have? So just consider that. Consider what your writing pace is, and use that as a guide to whether you want to write or whether you should write that next book, whether it's the right timing.
Yeah, no, I think that's helpful. Cool. Okay. Cool. So number one, take stock. Number two, what sort of time availability do you have, and what's your writing style and writing pace, and is it something that you can manage to do and do well, at any particular stage?
Cool. Yeah. So number three, and a really important part of this topic is I think a lot of authors think this, and we hear this. We hear writing the next book is the best way to market the first book. And that can be true. We don't like to say that's definitely the case, because it may not be. It may be, unique to your situation. It may not be the best choice, but getting that next book out there is a great way to remind people that you have another book out there. You can get new fans through that second book that had never heard of you before, and they say, "Oh, that's cool. I love this guy. He has some really good stuff. Let me see what else he has. And the fact that you have another book, that's just another, another book that people can read. I know that it's helped me with my book sales, people that have bought multiple books and have told me as such. And I think that's potentially huge. You have one person, reading one book, you're not going to get numbers wise as many sales or as many, as much from that.
Right. Yeah. You have more opportunities for people when they want to take that deep dive and they think, oh, Jordan Ring, man, this is cool. I like this book. What else has he done? And you go on your Amazon page and, oh wow, cool. Yeah. There's 6 other books here. Okay, let me take a look. Maybe one or more of these is interesting to me and might be worth checking out.
Yeah, and I think that being said, it shouldn't be the sole reason. It shouldn't be okay. The only way I'm going to market my current book is to get a next one out there, because maybe there's a better way to do that. The whole idea of building a platform and building your audience, that's one of the most important things you can be doing. So again, that question is a book the best thing that you can do to build your audience? And maybe not. So that's just something to consider there as far as timing.
Yeah, got it. Okay,
cool.
So yep, 3, marketing your previous books may or may not be helped by producing your next book, and that may factor into the timing consideration. Got it.
Yep. Okay. So number 4, this is also an important one that I believe is very important. Do you even want to do it? Do you have the energy to put forth to put a book out there? There's going to be varying levels. Like we were talking about earlier, some people can knock out a book and it's maybe not a huge deal. And other people, it's going to take a little bit longer. It's going to take a little bit more time and effort and, finances to be able to do that. You just have to consider where you're at with that. But do you have that burning desire to write the next book? Especially if you just got off your first one and you're like, oh, I don't know. It may be better for you to just take a breather, take a second, and then just really consider that. Is it something that I'm going to have that mental energy for? You can work yourself up and get to the point where you can get it done. But if you're not really ready for that mentally, if you're not ready to put the time in, the end result might reflect that. And maybe waiting a few months or jumping into something else first could be more beneficial.
Right. So, when we're thinking about building that comprehensive, authorship brand, one of the things that we talk about is, building your email list, offering that sort of freebie to get people interested in what you're doing, and then offering other higher value goods and services and products and things that are related to your business. And so perhaps after that first book, maybe your head is just not in that writing space anymore. So that might be a good time to start working on that video course, start working on that audio course, start working on building your coaching clientele, start working on, landing some public speaking opportunities, or, building your brick and mortar business. Cause for some people writing a book is about doing that specifically. And so, you could be taking some of those lessons and insights learned from writing the book. One of the things that I talk about in Published Professional, a good reason for a business person to write a book is to give them time to kind of take stock and figure out where their business is at, what their mission is going to be, or you have identified it to be, and what your target clientele is. And so having written that book, perhaps now is a good time to redouble your efforts and say, okay, now I've got a clearer mission statement. Now I have more clarity of purpose and meaning behind what I'm doing. And it might make it easier for you to advance on those other fronts and, build that business in a more comprehensive way. So that if you decide to write a book, at some point down the road, you have a bigger funnel, a bigger network for people to tap into when they want to support you. They've realized they like you, they trust you, they respect you, and they want to be a part of the business that you're building.
Yep, totally. And I think that leads very nicely into the last one I have here. And it's really just to feed your tribe. So ask your fans and yourself about what you think about your fans. What do they really want? What is a good natural next step for you to offer? Do they want another book to read? Do they need a course to help you explain those things more to them? Maybe you can offer coaching services. Maybe that's something you can do.
Right.
Maybe you can build a planner or anything else that you can think of. Maybe there's a better option than a book. I think we think the world of books here, obviously, because they really can help you build authority. it really can help people just grow in their business. But maybe it's not the next best step to do. And like we said, a lot of times it can be. There are tons of reasons why, like as we were saying, that it makes sense to write that next book. But is it what your tribe wants? Is it what your people that you're talking to through your email list and through your blog, is it really the next best step for them? And that's something for me, Rob. And I think just as I've been reading more and learning more and interacting more with my audience and fans, I'm realizing it should be more about what your people want. It's not about what other fans of other people want and need. It's about what your particular people that are reading your blog, what are they getting from you and what do they need more of? You can just see what good reviews you've gotten on that first book, or comments you've gotten on blog posts or other things you've done, or comments on YouTube videos. What are you already doing that people are saying, hey, that's really helpful. Thank you so much. Like, I needed to read that today. I needed to see your email. Maybe just thinking about doing more of those type of things that are actually, it really is helping people. So. Right.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. And, another thing too, when you take some time to step away from writing and, dive back into whatever your business. So for example, if it is a brick and mortar business, or something that you're doing other outside work in, when you dive back in, with the experience of having written that book under your belt and you're thinking about it, it gives you one, a little bit of a fresh perspective, but two, a chance to get back in the trenches and figure out, okay, so maybe I figured out this set of problems and challenges and I have some workable solutions for them. What are the next stage of challenges or problems that people who I'm serving are experiencing, and what are the workable solutions there? You go back and you talk about building authority. You build authority through experience, and so getting your feet wet, getting your hands dirty, and getting back into that business, whatever it is, and developing more of a more experience with that, gives you that added authority. It gives you that added credibility and experience and insight, so that you can come back when the time is right to actually go and put out something that's going to be really high value, is going to advance your business, but also really advance the interest of your readers, of your audience, of your target demographic, because you're coming back to them with on the ground experience, knowledge, insight that's going to take the next step further, and that could be really valuable. I think people really appreciate and respect when authors who are writing about a field are not just writers. It's the expression, those who do, those who can't teach, and that's a little bit unfair maybe to teachers, but the idea is, having somebody who's just a teacher who's just commenting on something and not actually engaging with it, maybe a musician who's not actually performing, but who's advising people on how to perform. Maybe they don't have as much credibility and experience as somebody who is out there actually, touring and performing concertos or whatever it is. And so you have that added authority and credibility, and keeps you grounded. It keeps you able to relate to your target audience.
Yep, cool deal. Rob, just want to mention we did get a comment on Facebook from a David Brooks. He said, "Hey Jordan, we got a can opener now. I believe you're referring to the can opener that you didn't have at York Freelance there in Pennsylvania. Thank you for popping on. We appreciate you, leaving a comment there. Thank you for the well wishes and travels. Appreciate anyone that comes on and comments when Rob and I are doing these fun live videos. Thanks, David."
Awesome. Yes, thank you, David. I'm glad the recommendation, I guess, for a can opener was well received.
Yeah, I'm glad that I could help in that small way.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. So did you have other thoughts, other ideas that you want to share on, when you're writing when you should write your next book?
No, I think really when I'm thinking about it, I think those are the five main ones. I think it's important, I think don't overthink it. I think there's been times before I pressure myself. I got to start writing the next book. And, I really had to pull back and like, Jordan, maybe that's not the best next decision for me. Maybe there's other things that I should be, putting my focus on, especially when you are a solopreneur and doing a lot of the things yourself. If you're sitting there only writing books, there are other things that can be done too, like such as giving video content or writing more blogs. And, especially when you're attention really, especially when you're on your own and doing things by yourself, you really have to step back and consider, okay, like it's okay if I don't write, 4 books this next year. That's an okay thing. There's no reason to pressure yourself. And I say that really from having to learn that a lot, people telling me those things, and just, a lot of the learning I've done myself.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. So one other thing that I want to share too, about when you should write your next book is, depending on your genre, your topic, there may be certain times of the year when writing or releasing a book is going to be more or less helpful. So for example, if you're making a book about, Easter decorations, and, you want to make it into some sort of annual thing, you probably don't want to release it, in September. You want to release it around Easter time. Or if you're writing about, Christmas things, or, tax time, or, back to school things, or anything like that, when there are specific seasonal sort of obligations around it, then maybe think about it, about those, and plan backwards from there. Then you can start thinking about some of those other things that you've mentioned. How long is it going to take me to write a book? Do I have the experience and insight to put this next one out there? I have, whatever it is, try and think backward from it and plan for it accordingly, so that you can capitalize on it. A lot of times we get books from authors, people who are looking to publish right around holiday time or the beginning of the year. A lot of times things like New Year's resolutions and, fitness and health and that kind of thing. There's a lot of that being sold and marketed at the beginning of the year. So, planning backwards and saying, okay, well, I need to have my manuscript done by such and such time, because it's going to take, X number of weeks or months to put it together. I think that is important too. So think about any outside goals or outside obligations that are extant for you to accommodate and take into consideration when you're planning your next book.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And like I was saying before, when I'm going in and being kind of crazy with the goals I'm setting, and not really taking into consideration all the different things that I may be doing or that I want to work on besides just writing the next book or those goals. It's just important. I mean, I think that's a general life lesson too, like that I've been continuing to learn, is just to consider all those factors. And at the end of the day, don't be too hard on yourself, but also push yourself too. If it does make sense, if you're like, what, I got to write that next one. I'm just have a burning desire to do that, and it makes sense for your business. It's going to be the thing that's feeding your tribe. People are going to love it. Then, set goals for yourself and do that, and, don't look back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's good. And that's important. The old truism of, know thyself, know what you're capable of, know what's important to you, know what your strengths and areas of growth are, and take all that into consideration and plan accordingly, so that you can, maximize your strengths, shore up any weaknesses or challenges that you have, and really make the most out of your time. With careful planning and insight, you can really go a lot further in many cases than just winging it and hoping that it turns out for the best. So part of that is knowing, what you are capable of, and where your head and your heart and your skill set is, so you can make the most of it.
Cool. Yeah, I love the way you said that at the end, where your head and your heart and your skill set is. If you can find a good alignment of those things, then you're golden.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Okay. Well, do you have any other thoughts, comments, thoughts on the topic?
No, I'm good, Rob.
All right, cool. I know this is a little bit shorter today, but all good. We appreciate all of your thoughts, comments, questions down below. Anybody out there watching, we appreciate you tuning in, and feel free to leave any thoughts, anything that you want to know more about, any topics that you'd like us to address. We will do our best to address them in future videos. And I think that's all for now. Anything else, Jordan?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're an author that has written, your second, third, or fourth book, we'd love to hear your insights and your reasoning as to what helped you make those decisions. Because I think that's where we can really learn about this. Just typing in, and I did this before we got on here, Rob. A lot of these reasons, were my own, but I typed in when to write the next book in Google, and there's only one blog post that, it wasn't necessarily super helpful. So that timing piece, it is a question that we have heard, but I don't think it's a hard one to kind of nail down. And we'd love to get feedback from other authors that, have made that decision, and whether, what your thinking was there.
Yeah.
So definitely let us know.
That's an awesome point. Yeah, we are always looking to learn and grow and get on the ground feedback and experience. So yeah, if you did write your subsequent books, your one or more follow-up books to an initial book, and the timing was just right or not quite right, we'd love to hear about that. Figure out what happened and what we can reverse engineer so we can help other authors out there. So if you have any experiences, please definitely feel free to share and comment below.
Good deal.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jordan. Thanks everybody out there watching, and have a good night, everybody.